Good morning, everybody. My name is Blake Jungmeyer. I'm Chief Growth Officer at EventNext. I've spent my entire career in brand experiences, live events, and performance marketing. So I'm really honored to sit here with some amazing people that I've gotten to know over the last 2 days and talk to you guys a little bit about inclusivity and diversity. I'm going to pass it and let everybody introduce themselves this morning. They've got some amazing backgrounds and insights.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is LaRhonda Burley. I serve on our executive leadership team at Michigan State Athletics. This is my first collegiate role. My background is primarily in the pro space. We're actually sitting in my old stomping ground right now. Spent the majority of my career in the DC market, which I still will call home, but came out here during the pandemic to launch the business operations side of the G League property for the Detroit Pistons and Motor City Cruise. So I now call Michigan home, which I'm very proud to do, and that's what led me over to Michigan State, where I have oversight of our marketing, brand, and revenue programs. So look forward to talking with you today.
My name's Ian Bunting. I'm coming from a sports background. I played football at Michigan and then bounced around the NFL for the last 5 or so years, most recently with the Dallas Cowboys, and then I've been working with, you got to hear a little bit about us in the last chat, Valiant Management Group and Champion Circle, which is an NIL collective and sports marketing agency at University of Michigan.
Hi everyone, my name is Reed Harris. I'm the North American DE&I lead for Kenvue, a consumer packaged goods company that spun off from Johnson & Johnson in May of last year. I was with Johnson & Johnson previously for 14 years, wore a number of hats from operations to customer strategy to customer development, managing our target business, and now get to live out my passion role, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So pleased to be here. I'm a proud Metro Detroiter, grew up in Chesterfield and grew up watching the Bad Boys, so I had to represent and thank our sponsors for having us here at this awesome facility.
I'm Lisa Hannusch. I am not from Michigan, but I am here for the Texas-Michigan game tomorrow and representing the University of Texas and our official NIL collective, the Texas One Fund. My personal background has nothing to do with sports. I was in medical management, had my own company, sold it in 2017, and I'm an active alumni, donor, fan of the Texas Longhorns, and I got tapped on the shoulder to say, can you help out with this NIL thing for the women, because I'm not sure that they know what's going on and whether they would have any opportunities. So I've been working on the NIL perspective for women's athletics specifically, but all athletics for the University of Texas for the last 3 years.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Sebree-Henry. I am a Detroit girl through and through. I am a Go Blue Michigan grad, undergrad, and a CAS technician. I always like to say that. I have been really, really blessed to have a career that spans over 25 years. And in that career have had the ability to work on the agency side, on the brand side, and even the media sales side. I currently work for Northwestern Mutual. I lead multicultural marketing for them. And I have been really blessed to work and sell a lot of things. Automotive, because I'm a Detroit girl. Of course, I've done Ford, Chrysler, and GM. And then I've also worked in gaming as well as with McDonald's and FedEx and a lot of different brands. And so I'm really happy to be here to talk about multicultural marketing. Thank you.
I think we've heard a lot about DEI and the conversations that we've had this morning. It's been a common thread. So obviously programs are alive and well within a lot of brands and organizations. My first question is, what does inclusivity and diversity look like today in your marketing programs?
I can start. So inclusivity, diversity, all of that, what it looks like to me is authenticity. Everyone wants to see themselves. And what happens is, what we don't realize in the general market space is you all see yourselves every day, but what about the Hispanic community or the African American community or the LGBTQ+? You know, when we turn on the television, when you go home today, if you turned on your television in every single station, they were speaking Spanish. or speaking French. You're going to gravitate to whatever station gets you to English. That's how it is living as not in the general market. When we go home, we don't see ourselves. So when we create programs, we have to be authentic. We have to represent what America looks like and how they engage. So what I love about working at Northwestern Mutual is, let me take you back a little bit. I'm a girl who has sold everything. My last position was with Rocket Mortgage, which I loved that job. It gave me the opportunity to, for my first time, selling something that meant something to my people and meant something to cultural audiences, which is getting people better at their finances, getting them into homes, understanding how important it was for them to have home ownership. Now that I'm at Northwestern Mutual, the journey continues. I am in a position that I can help people with better their finances, to explain to audiences that don't know that life insurance creates generational wealth, and having a plan is important. So when I moved into this position, I was recruited, and the first thing I said was, are you really about it? Are you about this business of being inclusive? And they said yes, and when I came over, I saw it. We have programs that help individuals who don't know that they can be better at their finances, who don't know that generational wealth starts with a life insurance policy, get into those policies. And we've got all these programs. We have a Black Accelerator program that allows individuals to really, they're entrepreneurs who get seed funding from us. All of these programs help build up communities that are Hispanic, African American, and so on and so forth, and not just the general market. So that's what I love about what Northwestern Mutual is doing right now.
I think I can build off that too. It's important to be seen, it's important to be heard, and you know, there's one thing to see, you know, someone that looks like you in an advertisement that speaks to you, but there's also the piece behind that of driving change. And if you in a brand want to go a step further and really make an impact in the community and change the community for the better, change their marketplace for the better, that's incredibly important to us at Kenvue. One of the things I'm very proud of right now is from our Listerine brand. Listerine is an oral health brand, and one of the things that they've done is a partnership. They've recognized that there is a big racial disparity among black prenatal students in dental care. And so they formed a partnership with a group called Compound, worked with 2 black artists in designing custom Listerine packaging for an exclusive partnership with Target and Target.com. But outside of just driving that creative change in the packaging and highlighting the racial disparity that exists in dental care, they also partnered with the Increasing Diversity in Dentists initiative to drive donations and funding, and also resource support in the form of pre-dental application assistance, mentoring, processing the applications, and helping those black predental students in getting into dental school. And they're really proud of that partnership, and that's something that they want to flag not only in the creative of their products, but in driving that change and driving that racial disparity in dentistry. So I think that's one aspect that brands need to consider too, is outside of just, you know, visibly showing the diversity and representation, but also looking to take it a step further and drive meaningful change in your communities.
From a actual application standpoint, even just taking a step back and simplifying a bit, so when I moved to the collegiate side, that was my first time where we were serving multiple sports and multiple demographics under one umbrella. On the pro side, you have one brand, and you can figure out the different pockets within a community that serves, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But that was the biggest learning thing for me when I got to Michigan State, was looking at the different sports and understanding where that interests lie. How, if I'm a fan and I'm coming to a soccer game, what does that look like? And if you're coming to a soccer game and you're a young family, well, it's easy, ingress and egress. You can have a stroller, you can get in, your kids can run around, they're all within view. You probably see other parents that your kids play soccer with. It's a far different experience than coming to a tailgate and all-day football experience on a Saturday, where that's more skewed towards adults or kids over 8 to 10, for, just from a demographic standpoint when you look at it that way. So while we look at a lot of things from race, gender, and those things, that's important, but also what is the experience that we're offering to everybody, and just what does that look like in folks that are going to attend? And from a marketing perspective, that's important. At Michigan State, we're a global brand, but we are a local product. So if we're looking to market something, one of our Olympic sports, soccer, gymnastics, a well-designed graphic on a community board in Starbucks is going to get the eyes of mom or dad while they're waiting and kids are sitting right there. Oh, I can go this afternoon and bring my kids there. That serves where I'm in my life and where my family is. Where that's a different outreach and consumer base and for football, men's basketball, et cetera, and also a different price point. So those are things from a marketing perspective to consider as well beyond the larger conversation. But to Nicole's point about authenticity, I mentioned I'm from DC. I moved out here after 38 years in my hometown for this opportunity to launch a G League property. And the first thing I realized was the pride in Detroit was like something I've never seen. It was pride I feel for where I'm from, but I'm not from here. So if we were going to lead this and guide it successfully, number one, had to lean on the expertise of the Detroit Pistons. They know the brand, they know this market. You heard from Mike Dene on the last panel. He was a huge part of successfully launching that brand year one. But along with that is going into the community and finding folks that are relatable and already have a platform, already have a voice, already have credibility. For the first time in my life, I spoke to someone on an airplane on my flight back from my interview with the Pistons, and his name is Ken Walker, not K9, who played for Michigan State. But if you know the name in the Detroit market, Kenneth Walker, he is a local black designer. He designed our inaugural jersey for the Motor City Cruise. If you Google him, you'll see a lot of great stories around his support of our brand here. He has a storefront on Cass. He went to Cass Tech. He's now global with his design work. He's fantastic, and we hopefully played a part in his story. When I met him, I realized he was the right person. He had the credibility. He had the voice of the community that I did not have. I can support that, but I'm not the right person to represent that. And so the authenticity piece is very important whenever you're building something in a community and understanding what it means to the people that live and breathe it every day.
And I think one of the things, too, about marketing from my perspective and athlete fulfillment as an influencer for a brand is making sure that the brand actually sees that authentic athlete. It's not just the star quarterback. It's not just the person who has the most Instagram followers. It is a connection that has to be made from a diverse perspective. And there's so many good points that were made today, but one of the ones that Bridget from Allied made in her 50-50, she said she would never be able to get that particular opportunity had she not been in the room. Now, I represent a brand that is very football-centric, and I love football. I went to games since I was little bitty, and, well, I still am kind of little bitty compared to Ian over here. But from that, that's the brand is football, Texas football. And my job in this NIL fulfillment space is that I'm the only woman as part of the board of our NIL organization. And without my voice, without me being there to talk about diversity, to talk about women's sports, to talk about what does it mean for opportunities for everyone, not just the pretty white girls that people might want, or not just the star football player, but really trying to understand who our athletes are and what they represent and what they can offer to brands from their authenticity.
Could not agree more. Michigan is a very similar property and market to Texas in that it is very football-centric. So part of our job is to elevate all the student athletes. We have over 900 student athletes at Michigan. And so how do we do that? Well, you just heard about it in the last talk with Detroit versus everybody. Last year we did, in 2 days, like you said, one of our superpowers is we can be really nimble. We're in with the athletes. We all played football there or track and field there. We have everyone in our company went to Michigan or is adjacent to it or played a sport there. We get it. We know what it's like to be in those kids' shoes. And when we were there, we couldn't capitalize on our name, image, and likeness. So what we do is we'll stand up programs like a group licensing program where with Detroit versus everybody, in 2 days, like he said, 50,000 units were moved, and we allowed every student athlete who opted in to, if they promoted it, they got a cut of a royalty share. That is not that's unheard of 4 years ago. That didn't exist. So we're able to include everyone and use the huge brand of, like Texas, Michigan, and the football team to lift everyone up and share some of that pie.
You guys actually just started to touch on this, but I think the newness of NIL in the collegiate space means that there's not a singular definition of what it is, right? So I thought maybe you guys could touch on what is NIL in the collegiate space, right? And then how's it changing the concept of inclusivity across sports and sports marketing?
Yeah, I mean, NIL, name, image, likeness, is the ability for an athlete to be able to capitalize, monetize their own name, image, or likeness. Now, that sounds obvious, but it was prohibited by the NCAA until a Supreme Court ruling that said, no, just because you are on scholarship, or maybe you're not even on scholarship, the athletic department doesn't own your name, image, and likeness. You own your name, image, and likeness, and you're able to use that to promote different brands that are out there. So that's kind of, I'm going to say that as part one, and then we'll get to part two of your question.
Yeah, to go in on part one as well, NIL is a very popular term right now. It's kind of a buzzword, a buzz term. NIL's been around forever. College athletes just haven't been able to capitalize on it. It used to just be called sports marketing, or, you know, professional athletes used to be able, and still are, to use their NIL to get a brand deal. And it was always NIL, it just wasn't called NIL. So now when people hear NIL, a lot of times they think college athletes and utilizing it because it's so new. But for instance, when I was in school, my roommate and I started a clothing line with his dad, and it was kind of the inception of our Valiant agency. And we were told, hey, you guys can't promote your clothing line, you're gonna lose your scholarship if you do. And we're like, what? Like, how are we supposed to sell units? How are we supposed to do this? Like, all our classmates can promote stuff if they have it. And so that kind of sparked the interest for us in this NIL landscape before it was even really much of a conversation. Now that the Supreme Court has ruled it and allowed it to become, come to fruition, there's a huge, huge opportunity for all of these athletes to really capitalize on something that they haven't been able to do for the last 120 years or whenever the NCAA started.
And I think it's interesting that sports was different than other students. So the student that was building rockets or was in film school also might be on scholarship. They had that opportunity. It was only a prohibition from the NCAA for sports and student athletes. So, that's kind of an interesting change of what this looks like, and it's going to continue to change. But as far as inclusivity, I think it's really important that you kind of look back. Title IX existed since the 50s, but Title IX in sports departments didn't exist until the 90s. So, and it happened to actually be women from the University of Texas that brought suit to Title IX to say this has to apply to sports, and it's not equal opportunity as it relates to the 50-50. I would love for it to be 50-50. I'd love to see pay equity. But the reality is that Title IX means there has to be equal opportunities as an athlete as proportionate to your student population. So at UT, when they did a settlement of this suit, they said, yes, Title IX does apply to athletics, and you must include more women's sports. So we added rowing, soccer, and softball because of that one lawsuit to try to even up some of our sports team. When you look at the sports marketing for inclusivity now, that's just trying to get gender involved. Now, how do you get more than gender involved? How do you get what you were talking about, Nicole, on all aspects of DEI? How do we have, like, when we looked at a campaign as, she is me, I look at that person and I know I can be that athlete. I know I can use that product. I know I can watch that TV. Whatever it is, it's like I can be there. I see myself. And that's something that our athletes are so diverse. They're from different backgrounds, not just genders, but LGBTQ athletes. There are the different races, there are different ethnicities. We are very international on some of our sports teams, so you have very different cultures that come in. And they represent different opportunities for different brands to say, this is how it is inclusive. And it's our job, and Ian speaks to this too from Michigan, it's our job in representing these athletes to say, there are other opportunities for all kinds of athletes. And one of the things I saw in coming early to Michigan, Henry Ford is obviously very big in the state. And so I went to the Henry Ford Museum. There's a T-shirt on the wall. And the T-shirt says, you can have any color that you want.
As long as it's black.
And that's one thing that, you know, I said something about the pretty white girls. That's awesome. We have those. And we also have any color that you want as long as it's black. So if the marketing company comes to us and says, you know, this is the person I want, we can say, here's also these other athletes. Here's an athlete that's actually more authentic to your brand. Here's an athlete that will grow with your brand, talking about some of the brands that were represented earlier, that you start early and all of a sudden this person is super famous and is in the draft. We kind of know who's on that path, and it's like, how do you attach that and be more inclusive across that?
Yeah, I would, 5-second thing, would challenge brands too. Like, nobody knows our athletes better than we know our athletes. If you're saying, hey, I want this athlete and I want him to be with this, you know, this event or this, you know, mission, that may be a square peg in a round hole. But if you say, hey, here's my goals for this marketing activation, we can find whatever peg fits in that hole, and we can tell you, hey, these are the athletes you want to look at for this. This person grew up with this, you know, this background, or this person is personally affected by this issue. That is where we can really make something work marketing-wise.
So first of all, I know that as long as it's black from my Ford days, it's something very custom that you know if you work on Ford business. But to talk about the NIL piece for a minute, I am extremely elated that these young athletes have the opportunity from a college perspective to start to be able to get deals. But from what much is given, much is required, right? So there is the other side of it, which is you have an 18, 19, 20-year-old who now can make $1 million and they're still in college. And so we already know the statistics when we talk about athletes, professional athletes, and them not coming from money and losing that money very quickly after retiring from the NFL. So they can be a millionaire at 23 and be very broke at 35. Think about that from a perspective of an 18-year-old having now $1 million and not having the foundation of understanding. And so what I'm excited about and what I've been working with Northwestern Mutual on is that we have a financial advisor. He has a company called Secure the Bag that he works with a lot of college athletes and professional athletes who are just starting off, who have all of these NIL deals. And what he does is he educates them on how to invest, how to save, how to leave a long-lasting legacy for their families. And that piece is also important because we have a lot of minorities who didn't come from money, and they don't know what to do with this money. And so what I've been very proud of is the fact that I'm excited. I'm a girl that went to Michigan. We don't have some of our wins up in the rafters, which we can talk about that. That was during my generation, right, where they may be taking money because they were dirt poor, and it cost us our acknowledgement. I'm very enthused and happy that it's there, but I'm also happy that I work for a company that's helping them and educating them on how to invest and how to keep that money for at least their generation, if not future generations, and that's key as well.
I think it's easier today, especially with us all being online and kind of the reality of today's world, to add a voice to the conversation, right? So I guess the question for y'all is, how are you balancing and adapting to that woke versus anti-woke culture war that we're seeing in the marketplace today?
Yeah, it's probably the most popular question I get asked being in DE&I is, how are you in DE&I? What are you gonna? Are you changing your policies now because of what's happening politically? And I'm proud to say that Kenvue first has not changed any titles or any policies in regards to our diversity, equity, inclusion policies. So it's a privilege to work for a company that believes strongly in DE&I. I also think it goes a step further than that when you have to look at your brand values. Despite the external noise of, you're for this or you're for that, and do you change your position on something, what are your brand values that dictate how you respond to things? What are your brand values that are your guiding compass, your North Star as a brand to determine how you react to issues, how you respond to issues? We have very declarative values at Kenvue. We put people first. That's our first value, is we make products with integrity, we make products with quality, and we put our consumers first. We care fiercely. That's our second value. We embrace inclusion. We embrace belonging at our company. Third, we earn trust with science. We have nearly 50 consumer brands that have been around for over a century: Band-Aid, Neutrogena, Tylenol, Listerine, Motrin, you name it. I mean, household names that have a legacy and heritage to them. So that's really important. And I would say, lastly, we solve with courage. That's our fourth value, and that's really, we look for unmet needs and we work to solve them. So I would encourage any brand that's facing pressure to change their tone or change their statements or change their titles to instead stop listening to the external noise and go back in your boardroom and say, who are we as a brand and what do we stand for, and base our decisions off of that.
Amen.
That was pretty complete. That was good.
I think we're kind of wrapping up here. The one question I would want to throw to all of you as well is, what's been the most impactful moment from an inclusivity and diversity initiative that you've experienced or that has most positively impacted your brands to date?
Say one recently, or a couple recently that we've done. We had a whole team-wide football signing event for a couple weeks ago for kind of the kickoff of the season. And we were able to partner with a charity partner, Best Buddies, and they brought, several, I don't know the exact number, but over 20, I think, developmentally challenged youth. And we got to take some of the players, away from the signing event for a little bit and just have them go run on the big house field with some of our players. And the amount of emails that we got from those kids' moms saying, my kid came home today and said it was the best day of their life, like that, to me, that makes it worth it, and that is something that you can really stand on and be proud of. We also do other events with, we've done a lot with National Guard, and we, for those of you who are in Detroit, you might know the camp Sound Mind, Sound Body is huge with Detroit youth sports, and we got a bunch of the kids from Sound Mind, Sound Body to come to the Michigan basketball stadium and talk to service members and say, hey, what does it take to be a leader in your community, and how can you change your community by stepping up and being a leader and taking, having accountability and all of the things that go into service to your country, and how can you implement that into your community? So for me, those are two things that we're really, really proud of.
On the nerdy marketing side, at Michigan State, we always call that turning moments into memories. And it sounds silly, but that's true. And something I heard very early in my career is every single event that you attend or work, there's someone who's there for the very first time and potentially someone who's there for the last time. And that's something we always take really seriously in creating this moment. So appreciate those examples that Ian offered. Two things come to mind. One is a little bit more on a symbolic tone, but for military recognition. So again, Washington, D.C. girl, it's something that I grew up with the proximity of all of our military services around me. And when I got to Michigan State, and we're celebrating Veterans Day, we had a handful of sporting events around Veterans Day recognition. And we want to do something that was people-centric, but also something that had a broader reach. And so if you're familiar with the prisoner of war missing in action chairs, but many venues have them now, but they sit, typically they're black, they sit empty, and they're in honor of those service members. It's around 81,000, I believe, primarily from World War I, that are still unaccounted for. And so there's an empty seat that's waiting for their return. And we made a pledge to have one of those installed in every venue at Michigan State Athletics awaiting their return. And I say symbolic versus performative because I think that's a really fine line when you walk and those sort of things. And we made sure that we use this as an opportunity to tell stories and welcome families and involve our staff and involve our student athletes. And now we have one waiting in every venue, and there's people that go and take photos and they see that, and you see them having a moment with that. And that's something I'm proud of from a broader perspective. When we talk about inclusivity and reaching different areas, it's really about creating those moments that are important to people, that do want to bring them back, where they feel seen, they feel heard, and they feel something represented that's part of their makeup. So one last thing, it's a little bit of just a personal, smaller thing, but we're getting ready to celebrate and recognize Hispanic Heritage Month across athletics in Michigan State. And in the past, I feel that sometimes we've just put up a graphic to recognize a cultural, social group, and that feels a little bit performative. And some feedback, particularly for Hispanic Heritage Month, that we received last year was around that. And I was leaving, I was walking down the hallway in our office a couple weeks ago, and I saw some folks leaving a conference room, and they were all smiling and just really excited. I was like, what was that meeting about? And it was with a few of our staff members and from other parts of the athletic department, and primarily Hispanic, but some folks who are not as well. Like, oh, we were planning for Hispanic Heritage Month. Some of our staff members reached out and they wanted to do something around one of our programs. And to see that authentic joy of feeling seen and heard, and now we're looking to apply that into our games in the coming weeks. Earlier today I had a call with Lupe Izzo, who's going to be a big part of that as well, and our staff, and bringing our coaching staff into it as well. And that I won't forget that smile I saw when they walked out. I was like, that's the ability that we have to have an impact versus just putting a logo up on a screen. So it's the small things too, and that one I'll carry with me even more than the bigger moments that we put together.
That's it. Thank you all.